The Darkangel by Meredith Ann Pierce, Chapter 2, Vengeance. "Who will kill the vampire?" said Ariel softly, softly. The vehemence of her own words surprised her. She was kneeling beside the wide, low windows of the deserted alcove just off the empty dying chamber. Night outside was dark and still. Her mouth tasted like metal. She had not known she could feel such bitterness. She remembered waking hours, many hours after the sun had set, and seeing old Bamba along with some others of the servant women, murmuring over her or moving quietly about the darkened chamber. Bamba had laid a cool, damp gauze cloth on her forehead. Time passed, and then she remembered Yoduin's mother, the syndic's wife, shoving suddenly into the room, the women falling back deferentially, uncertainly, because their mistress, who came to stand over Ariel, white-faced and screaming. "So she is awake? Now is she? Why wasn't I told? My daughter is dead because of you, you worthless chattel!" The woman's hair was disheveled, her thin cheeks tear-streaked, her garments rent with mourning. Her face above Ariel looked like Yoduin's, only older. One long finger she leveled at Ariel. "Why couldn't you not have protected my daughter? You should have given your life for your mistress." The woman's breast heaved in a sob. "Why could the vampire not have taken you instead of Yoduin?" And then the sharp crack of the woman's hand against Ariel's cheek, so sudden the tears sprang to her eyes. Startled murmurs from the servants, the syndic hurrying short-breathed into the chamber, pulling his wife away. "Come off, my dear. Such displays of grief are untowardly. You demean yourself before mere serving women." Then Bomba's great bulk bending over Ariel again, fingers stinging cheek gently, with murmurs of, "There, there, child, there." Ariel, beside the alcove window, stared out into the night. Since her recovery, she had kept as far from Yoduin's mother as she might. She thought then of Yoduin, the mistress she had served almost since before she could walk. She recalled it vividly, the aristocrat's young, doted-upon daughter, pointing her out to her father at the slave fair, 12 summers gone, and begging him to buy that one. Yoduin, who had been her constant companion since, more friend than mistress, though a proud and high-handed friend, her only friend. Ariel sighed bitterly. Now all things had changed. His daughter dead, the syndic planned to sell Ariel soon. She had heard the servants whispering in the halls. His wife demanded it. Ariel thought of the provincial slave fairs in Orm, bids and shackles, confinements, blows. Here, in the syndic's house, Yoduin had always protected her. She would be sold northward, she was certain of it, deeper into the hills. Here, at Plain's Edge, owned servants were sometimes treated with tolerance, but it was worse in the mountain heartlands. Tales of slaves beaten or worked to death, it chilled her thinking of it. Ariel closed her eyes to the dark outside. "I cannot live without Yoduin," she thought. "I would rather die than brave the slave markets of Orm." She pulled her tangled thoughts away from that, tried to think on other things. Already the village poets were beginning to sing of the syndic's hapless daughter, stolen away for the vampire's bride. Yet with all their singing and moaning and murmuring, in all the fortnight since, not one of Yoduin's friends or kith had stirred a step to climb the steeps again and confront her murderer. That is not justice, Ariel raged silently in despair. Holding the Icarus's great black feather up before her face, she opened her eyes and stared at it. Its dull darkness absorbed the nullified, the white and smoky lamplight. Without the shade of night, now 3/4 of a half-month old, loomed blacker than birds' eyes. The white plain of Avaric gleamed faintly in the pale blue light of Oceanus. "Someone must kill the vampire," she breathed, as to the feather almost pleading. The quill's black plumage stirred, that Yoduin may be avenged. "There is no vampire," said Dirna gently, her only companion in that small empty room. She sat beside Ariel, combing out her hair, carefully and back where her head was still tender. "Then what is this?" demanded Ariel, twisting around, her hair caught in the teeth of the comb, and pulled sharply, catching Dirna's hands in hers. She ran the older woman's long, leathery fingers over the feather. "I don't know," hissed Dirna quietly, her voice always soft and sibilant, nothing like Bomba's deep-sounding tones. "Don't know?" insisted Ariel. "What does it feel like?" The other sighed and groped for the little horn comb hanging tangled in Ariel's hair. Dear, true one, it does resemble a feather, but it cannot be. Perhaps it is a leaf, or flower, or some high mountain plant. Of some high mountain plant no one has ever seen before." "Dirna!" cried Ariel. Her fellow servant stared straight ahead and said softly, assuredly, "There are no birds even half so large. Birds are rose, or pale blue, or subtle green. Yet you say this thing is black. There are no black birds." "It isn't from a bird," said Ariel evenly. "There are no vampires," Dirna told her with infinite patience, "just as there are no mudlicks or water witches." Ariel stared off across the room and held her tongue. Dirna had been this way as long as she had known her. Sometimes she wore an eerie look that told she was in the mood for tales. Then she swore absolutely by the creatures of the dark, but other times her eyes seemed to clear a little, and she scoffed at them as nothing but mad mind's wanderings. The latter humor seemed to be on her now, and Ariel despaired, much as she shrank from Dirna's queerness. Her calmer moods could be even more galling. She wished the other had not found her come creeping into the little alcove where Ariel had retreated, to gaze out at the night. She wanted to be alone. She felt Dirna beginning to run through her fine yellow hair again. "The air is thin up on the steeps," she said. "Fatigue can trick your eyes. Perhaps a landslide. Perhaps she fell. I don't know." The comb picked and pulled at Ariel's scalp. Dirna sighed. "You mustn't grieve, dearling. I know it wasn't your fault." Ariel stiffened and stared at her. Dirna seemed to be listening, but Ariel saw no one in the outer chamber. The older woman said softly, conspiratorially, "Eowyn was not the easiest mistress to serve." Dirna pulled a few of Ariel's hairs from the comb. "But she admired you in a way. Did you know it? How you took her mother's every blow with never a sound. You know she used to fly into fits of tears if her father so much as slapped her." Dirna fluttered her fingers and let the freed hairs fall. "She was even a bit jealous, I think. Did you sense that, my heart? Resent it, even your mistress's jealousy?" "What do you mean?" demanded Ariel. Dirna's words astonished her. "Eowyn jealous of her? Impossible. I loved Eowyn." "Say nothing to me," hissed Dirna softly. "I will have nothing to tell." She found Ariel's chin with her hand and turned it away to face straight ahead. She spoke almost beneath her breath. "Everyone believes you, you know, or else holds tongue. The syndic believes you, else he'd have had you beaten for the truth." Ariel felt the comb parting her hair. "They went up into the steeps with candles. Had you heard? Looking for the place. They didn't find anything, though. No wonder. You can't see a thing by earth-light and candles." The comb tugged at a tangle in Ariel's hair. They did find a few more of those leaves, feathers, whatever they are, so I heard. You were smart to strew them about. The body will have fallen all to ash by the time the sun's up." Dirna's voice had hushed to a murmur. She laughed, quietly, companionably. "You're much cleverer than I took you for, little one, and there must be a deal more spirit in you than you've ever let show. Tell me, did you plan it, or just seize the opportunity? At sunrise you can take me up and we'll hunt for the bones." Ariel stared at her. Her throat went tight. She wanted Bomba suddenly. She wished Dirna had never come. "You'll find no bones," she choked. "The only bones you'll find are the sea things dead long years." Dirna continued combing her hair unconcerned. "Don't fear," she said. "You can trust me." The older woman's voice was full of pity. "I know that circumstance, the altitude, a sip of horn liquor, circumstance can make anyone a little mad." Ariel pulled hard away from her. "I didn't," she said. "You think I killed her, and I didn't. It was the vampire carried her away." Dirna shook her head. "There is no vampire, child." "There is!" cried Ariel. Her teeth were clenched. Outrage welded her against the Icarus. against the Odawin's faithless kith and friends, against Dirna and her soft, slippery words. The feather crumpled in her hand. "There is!" "Not so," said Dirna firmly. "Now let me comb your hair." "No," said Ariel, backing away. "All is well," crooned Dirna with compassion. "I understand how you must feel. Have I not told you? I killed someone dear to me once, too." Ariel looked at her with horror almost as deep as that she had felt on the mountain, and remembered one of the ghastly tales Dirna had once told her all alone in secret. It had been nothing like the silly, soothing old nurse tales of Bomba's. It was not even like the other ones Dirna herself had ever told. For this story, she had sworn utterly had really happened, and to her. Dirna sat, comb in hand, near where Ariel stood, and gazed at nothing, her eyes bright, filmed over, blind. Ariel shuddered and shrank from her. "What's wrong?" said Dirna, turning her high-held head in a trance. "Come here." "No," said Ariel, falling back another step. The madwoman reached for her. "Come here. I want to comb your hair." "No!" cried Ariel, and fled. The black feather fell from her hand as she ran through the empty dyeing room, and then to the crowded weaver's room. She tripped over a full basket of yarn, spilling the skeins across the dusty floor. Scrambling up, she fled the room, unheeding of the angry shouts that followed her. She found Bomba in the spinning room, hunched over in one corner, nodding off to sleep. Her great bone spindle lay fallen over on the floor, its fine wool thread beginning to unwind as her thick fingers relaxed. The other women spun and chatted, ignoring the old nurse. "Bomba!" cried Ariel, falling down beside her. "Bomba!" Bomba sputtered and half woke, sat a moment blinking, then reached her massive arm to enfold the frightened girl. "What's this, little one?" she murmured. "More nightmares?" "It was Dirna," said Ariel. She said." Bomba woke a little more and gave a great snort of disapproval. "Dirna, eh? You stay away from her, child, old tail-twister. She's a little fey, you know." Ariel buried her face in the soft fold of Bomba's bosom and sobbed. "I will kill the vampire," she choked, longing for Iota and hating her murderer. "I will kill him." Her whole body shook. She thought again of the syndic's wife. Why could the vampire not have taken you instead of the Odoin? Now Dirna's words had made her feel even more deeply that it was somehow all her fault. The old nurse clucked, patted and stroked her hair for a while. Gradually Ariel's weeping quieted. She clung to Bomba and felt no consolation. The old nurse settled herself a bit more comfortably, sighed, and drifted off into sleep again. The women spun on, unconcerned. And we will pause there.